There was in the early years, when the Frierdiker Rebbe was in the United States, the Frierdiker Rebbe spoke a Sikha in public. It was the Shabbos after Acharon Shel Pesach, Parsha Kedoshim, 1940, Tafshin. And the Frierdiker Rebbe said that it would be a good idea to compile all the different customs of Chabad and all the quotes, Pisgomim, short stories, and the Shiurim that need to be studied every day. And the Frierdiker Rebbe continues that this compilation is it could be done by someone that is the right candidate for it, and his qualities are basically that he has a broad mind, a deep misudar, a deep organized person, and a deep mind. And this is basically the one that is shaykh to do it. This was in 1940, and actually the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin were not yet in the United States, and they came a year and a few months later, 1941. In late 1942, the Frierdiker Rebbe writes a letter to the Rebbe, a formal letter, although he was upstairs on the second floor and the Rebbe was on the ground floor. But he wrote a letter to the Rebbe, a formal letter that the Rebbe should compile a luach, a calendar that should be for every day in the year. For Chassidische quotes, short stories, shiurim that should be learned every day. And this is a chok l'Chassidic Chabad. And it should start from Yutas Kislev and conclude the next year Yutches Kislev. When did the Frierdiker Rebbe write it to the Rebbe? On the 20th of Kislev. This is a day after Yutas Kislev, that it should be retroactive. The Rebbe started to work on it. He finished it in Nisan time. 4 months. 4 months the Rebbe worked on it. And it came out in Nisan. It was the Hayom Yom, and it was sold for 40 cents then, which was big money then, because basically it was a booklet, and the standard of living then, everything was 1 penny, 2 pennies, and here 40 cents, but it was a short supply. That's why it seemed like it was more expensive. And the Rebbe was the one that was selling it. There's a Yid that told us that he was in Tervadas, in Williamsburg, or wherever they were, in Flatbush. So he went almost in the 40s. He mamish collected the money, put it together, and came to buy the Luach by the Rebbe. The Rebbe was selling the Luach himself. So the Luach came out in 1943, Nisan time. It's the first book of the Rebbe, the first Sefer of the Rebbe. And the Sefer contains Pisgomim for every day. It's a leap year, so it contains Pisgomim for every day in the year, 383 days. And over the years, it was reprinted many times. It contains the biography of the Rabbeim, the 7 Rebbes, the 6 Rebbes then, up till 1943. It contains the Luach itself, which is the Shiuri Chitas for every day, and also quotes for every day. And then in the back, it has an index of the different inyanim that are discussed in the Luach, and everything was made by the Rebbe, cover to cover. It was basically a review by the Rebbe. When it came to the 1980, 1981, there was research that was done to figure out why is the Rebbe choosing, number one, where are the sources for all these Pisgomim? The Rebbe took out all the sources. The Rebbe took it from letters, from talks of the previous Rebbe, but the Rebbe didn't cite any sources. In addition to that, why everything is doch mit acheshm? Why did he choose this day, this Pisgam for this day? It wasn't like they say today, copy and paste. It was actually a certain theme, a certain pattern that the Rebbe had. It was discovered actually that it's connected with Chitas of the day, Chumash of the day. Chumash, sometimes Tanya, also Tilim, but primarily Chumash and Tanya. And so it's basically, the first one came out, the first one came out, basically it reflects the different days of the Chitas of that day, the Chumash of that day in Chitas. For example, when it comes to Chof Aleph Teves, it says that the Frierdiker Rebbe met a water carrier, and he said when you greet water, you should say that the Baal Shem Tov says that when a person greets water, the Baal Shem says it's a Siman Bracha. That day happens to be the Chitas, not happens to be, it's the Metzias, the day that the daughters of Yisrei met Moshe Rabbeinu, and then they said to their father, "V'gam doli dolo lanu mayim." He drew water for us. Comes to Chavdala Tevis, which is today. So the Alter Rebbe, the Rebbe brings that the Rebbe Marash asked the Tzemach Tzedek, what did our grandfather want with Chassidus and with Darkei HaChassidus? What did he want with these teachings? He says the union of Chassidus is that it should be light, and Darkei HaChassidus is that all the Chassidim should be like one family be'ava, like one family with love and affection. The Chavdala Tevis in the calendar setting of that year was Friday, Shishi Parsha Shmois. Parsha Shmois Shishi speaks about Moshe Rabbeinu telling his father-in-law, "I'm returning back to Mitzrayim to see the welfare, the condition of my brethren in Mitzrayim." He doesn't say brother, he says brethren. You say brother, I think he's talking about Aaron. He's taking Achai, plural, that means that all Yidden are like one family. So this is the Pisgam that the Rebbe picks, how it's reflected, how all Chassidim are one family. And al derech zeh, ich mean, I'm not going to keep everybody sitting here all night, or even more than that, but akoponim, it's basically the chitas of the day. In addition to the chitas of the day, there's also inyanim that took place in certain days, historically speaking. The Rebbe reflects it also. Wherever it comes in, he reflects it, where it's appropriate. Al derech zeh, he also reflects, in addition to all this, he reflects the 83 halachas of the Rambam, and the 83 titles of the Rambam. The Rebbe reflects it in the beginning from Vov Tevis, which is 2 weeks before the Yortzeit of the Rambam. The Yortzeit is Chov Tevis. So he reflects the Yortzeit of the Rambam by basically... he reflects it by... gerecht, dan zeggen L'chaim, ja. Okay, L'chaim. So Mela, he reflects it by the titles in the Rambam. The Rambam has Pei Gimel Halachas. The Rebbe begins in the Hayom Yom in Vov Tevis, which is after Chanukah, and it's Shvuayim Lifnei, the Yortzeit of the Rambam. The Rebbe begins with the inyan of Das Elokei Avicha. You should know the greatness of the Eibishter, because even the deepest inyanim have to come down in knowledge and in understanding. So this is basically the inyan of Hilchas Yesodei HaTorah. This is Hilchas Yesodei HaTorah from the Rambam. Comes the next day, the Rebbe speaks about how a person could spare himself from Chibud HaKever Kaf HaKela, which is the experiences that a person may have to go through later, which, as the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya in these days, that Chibud HaKever Kaf HaKela is basically, as we had it already actually, is basically benigir, refining oneself, worldly pleasures, all these inyanim, that a person should refine himself from these things, not to be involved in physical desires. So this is in the Rambam, Hilchas Deyas. That's where the Rambam discusses these things. Then the Rebbe brings in the 8th of Tevis that the Tzemach Tzedek tested his grandchildren, and he's in learning, and he also instructed the Melamdim should teach them Pirush HaMilas of Davening. What is that included in? In the Rambam, it's Hilchas Talmud Torah. Then comes in Test Tevis that Bishas comes to Aleinu by saying Lehevel V'Lorik, we spit. This is in order we don't want to benefit from the saliva in our mouth. In the Rambam, it's Hilchas Avodah Zorah. And then comes Asara B'Tevis, Yaziv Rosh Darki V'Ishov and Machshavesov. In the Rambam, it's Hilchas Tshuva. And this end concludes the first Sefer Hamada from the Rambam. And later the Rebbe goes on, 2 weeks later the Rebbe starts Sefer Zmanim. And actually Sefer Zmanim starts with tomorrow. Sefer Ava starts with tomorrow, which is basically, the Rebbe brings in the Hayom Yom the inyan of Yetzias Mitzrayim. That there's a Yetzias Mitzrayim, which is leaving Egypt, but breaking Egypt. And then there's Yetzias Mitzrayim al Pichsidas, that you are in world, but you stand higher than world. This is the inyan of Yetzias Mitzrayim Pichsidas, Birur V'Tikun, correcting world, not deserting world, not destroying world. What is that? That's the inyan of Hilchas Krishma. Yetzias Mitzrayim is Hilchas Krishma. Then comes Chavov Tevis, the Rebbe brings V'lam Alshinim, Hilchas Tefillah in the Rambam. Chula v'chula, and that's how it goes on. And we see Pasha the Daikonos, the accuracy, Lahafli, that when it comes to the last day, for example, of Sefer Zmanim, it's the last day of Sefer Zmanim, last halachas is two halachas together. Hilchas Megillah and Chanukah together. What is Megillah and Chanukah together? So the Rebbe says, Al Pi Kabbalah, there's a controversy. If Megillah and Chanukah is, one is Netzach and one is Heid, or either Chanukah is Netzach and Purim is Heid, or Chanukah or Purim is Netzach and Chanukah is Heid. So therefore the Rambam didn't want to make any compromise, so he put them together as one. So it comes in the Hayom Yom, the Rebbe brings on Yud Aleph Shvat, which happens to be the first day of the Rebbe's Nesius, the first full day. So the Rebbe writes, the beginning of the day, the running from Tog Hipzachon, the Tog Hipzachon with Meidani. With Meidani. Meidani we can say even without washing our hands. Far waschen Nägelwasser. Weil kol ha-tume sheba'ilam sei nicht metame de Meidani von a Yidden. All the tume sheba'ilam will not extinguish the Meidani of a Yid. What is that? That's Hilchas Megillah and Chanukah as one. Megillah, the union of Meidani, Yehudim. Not metame the Meidani of a Yid. That's the story of Chanukah, the Pach Shema, which is the Neshama of a Yid. So here the Rebbe pours it together as one, and both in halachas are reflected there. B'chol Eifen, this has been again the union of the Rambam, the 83 halachas. I mean, going over it's a whole hemshech of 6 months, and then by the end of the whole Hayom Yom, the Rebbe brings that the Alter Rebbe said, "I don't want your Gan Eden, I don't want your Elam Haba, I want only you alone." What is the Rambam right by the end? Le'nisavu chachomim le'meisa Mashiach, didn't have any desire. Anything, like kedei limlech, like kedei lechel v'lishtis, ela kedei sheyasigu das beiram. As it was written into the Rebbe, this prat, this detail, the Rebbe Farbrengen mentioned it, and the Rebbe stressed it, and the Rebbe said, Nicht nor kedei sheyasigu das beiram, nor as dich alein, which means that the Alter Rebbe's level, speaking about only you alone, the Eibishter alone, is higher yet than the inyan of yasigu das beiram. Because over there it's inyan of yasigu, understanding, hasoga. Here it's not as dichalein, the Alter Rebbe says, I don't want anything. As it was told Bechlal that the Alter Rebbe, when he was sitting, Pashit, before davening, he Pashit collapsed on the floor, and while he was meditating this inyan, focusing and thinking about it and saying it. Akoponim, Nikuda, one of the Nikudas is also that this is basically another inyan, in a nutshell, also is that it's an inyan of the Rebbe mentions after in the Sikha we quoted earlier that every year reflects the 70 years of a person. Every year it reflects 70 years of a person. Because every year, the next year is only a repeat from the previous year. So a year reflects the full cycle of time. When it comes to Hayom Yom, we take 383 days. We divide it by 70, which are the 70 years of a person. We see that every 5-6 days of the Luach is a year of a person. After a month in the Luach, how old is a person mathematically? Okay, after a month, he's 5 years old. 5 years old. What does the Rebbe speak about? The Rebbe speaks about Tzemach Tzedek was a child. He was learning Vaychi Yankev Beretz Mitzrayim. Then the Rebbe says the Alter Rebbe eingeführt the Takone to learn every day Chumash and Rasha. That is Ben Chumash LeMikra. A few days later, the person is 6 years old. The child is 6 years old. 6 years old, the Gemara says, starts Chinuch. Comes the Rebbe and says in the same sense that there is an obligation to put on tefillin every day. There's an obligation to think about the Chinuch of the children a half hour a day. B'meila, this is basically the age, the 6-year-old child. When Azi Geitos, that's how the Rebbe goes through, reflects. It comes to 20, the Rebbe speaks about Parnasa. Comes to 40, the Rebbe starts citing sources of Kabbalah in the Pizgamim, because he starts learning Kabbalah. And he speaks about this shiur of Kabbalah that the Tzemach Tzedek had with his son, with the Rebbe Marash. When Azi Geitos, still the Shleimus is not Gan Eden, not Elam Haba, and as the Rebbe is Medayik, that precisely the Rebbe says, what does it mean, not Gan Eden, not your Gan Eden? Not he's saying he doesn't want Gan Eden. He says, even if it's yours, the Eibishter's, but it's a revelation. It's not him alone. It comes to Elam Haba, it's also a revelation. But he wants only the Eibishter himself, his essence. So the Rebbe says a helpful that we should be able to see this all as it says, which is in the time of the Geula, Gili Atzmus Lamata. And after all this, I had once an experience that a person once came into the store, to the Kahas bookstore, a person from California, a balabas, and a shliach asked him to get the Hayom Yom, to buy the Hayom, to pick up for him a copy of the Hayom Yom. And he told him, Pasha, it's a calendar. It's a calendar. Person comes in, we give him the luach, he looks at it, he says, what's going on over here? This is a luach from 40 years ago. 1943, Zakter, and you're giving me now, 1983, you're giving me a luach. So, this is for all your life. What the Rebbe put in there, it's for all your life. So the Rebbe says, we should see all the neflois and all the inyanim from Torah. We should learn the Rebbe's Torah. We should look for the Rebbe. It says the Rebbe says in Derech Hayim that a person has to look. A person loses his father, so he's looking for him. He lost him. He doesn't know where he is. He doesn't know he's a different block, a different street. So he's going to follow the pathway where he can find him, what he usually takes, and that's how he's going to find his father, figuring that he's going to bump into him. The same thing is also benegir to the inyanim, that b'shas it comes in the matzav that we're in to connect with the Rebbe, to learn the word from the Rebbe, the parsha, the Hayom Yom, a maimer, everyone according to their level, to connect with the Rebbe, and b'meila then we connect with him. There were people that asked the Rebbe, how do we connect with you? So the Rebbe says, when I walk on the street, I think Tanya. B'meila, if you'll also review Tanya, we'll meet each other. That was the Another person sent a picture to the Rebbe, and he figured that the Rebbe is going to exchange a picture with him. So the Rebbe said, you probably want a picture also, or you want to connect, we should be close. The Rebbe says, the way of connecting is through learning. And learning, the Rebbe told chitas. Each one he called according to their standard. So the Rebbe says, a helpful we should be mekusher, should be connected. And the Rebbe says today the Iskashas is going to the writing a pidyon, halten sich an the klamke, the Rebbe says, holding on to the doorknob. This the Rebbe said in 1981. This is mamish already 30 years after Yitzvat. So al kopanim, when we should see all be'ene basa, we should be able to see the Rebbe, all the Rebbe, in Bigula Amitas Vashleima, the Mashiach Tzedkeinu. L'chaim.